Hello, hello, and welcome back. This is going to be already the final session for day number one. Holy moly, it has gone fast, and there's just been some great engagement, people from all over the world joining in, and just powerful sessions, stories, all of it. And we are finishing off the day with my good friend here, Samantha Hawkins. I cannot wait. And she is doing a session called Always Bet on You. Take it away, my friend.
Appreciate you, Ricardo. First of all, man, shout out to every single one of you who's on, who's joining now live. We'll be watching later. Y'all, it's Dare to Be Great 6. This session here is a kind of a full circle moment for me because of course when Ricardo first, let us know and I remember him telling me like this is going to be the last one. I'm just like, what, dude? But think about the fact that really on top of Ricardo betting big on this conference that was free from day one, from year one, free now, still offers hours and hours and just we're talking hundreds of hours of training on top of the fact that he bet on himself to put this whole thing together. Shout out to every single one of you who has returned year after year and helped make Dare to Be Great such a success. Because I've been blessed to be a speaker 3 times in a row now. 3 times in a row, the last three Dare to Be Great. And we can, as a trainer, as a speaker, you can put on the best session, best class that you can. No one has to show up. But y'all have showed up every single year because obviously you're betting on yourself. You believe in yourself. You believe in developing yourself as leaders. You believe in developing yourself to be better in this industry because this industry is amazing as it is, but you want to be better. So right there and then, that is the whole foundation of what Dare to Be Great has always been about. It's always about daring to be better, daring to be great. And this session is about betting on yourself because you indeed are the best investment you'll ever make. The best gamble you'll ever take is betting on yourself. Doesn't mean you always win. Doesn't mean you won't have to cut your losses sometimes. But really, to me, every time we challenge ourselves to be better, every time we step out of our comfort zone to do something absolutely new, we're betting on ourselves. And whether it turns out like how we'd want it to turn out, is it really a loss? Is it really a loss when we bet on ourselves? Believe that we can win, believe that maybe we didn't get it right this time around, but we will win later. I told y'all this is pretty full circle for me, and it is because June 7th, 2021. Tell you what that date means to me. It's not the beginning of the story of me betting on myself. I'll talk a little bit more about it. But June 7th, 2021 was a big deal because it was the day that I logged on for the pre-con day of Dare to Be Great 3. All I knew was that here I had never presented before virtually or in person. And that day, I logged on because I took on a whim, just took a chance and submitted to present for Dare to Be Great 3. Say, hey, Ricardo, maybe you remember me. I was the same one that won the continuing trenches education through your program. And, I see that you've got this call for speakers out. I've never spoken before. I took a chance. I took a bet on myself. And all of y'all who joined that day and listened to me afterwards, all the encouragement and everything. I took a big bet on myself June 7th, 2021. And now it's 2024. We're about to hit 2025. That bet has paid off. So through this session, I'm going to be mentioning a couple of things about myself. Please don't get it twisted. This isn't about bragging on Sam. This is giving some examples because if I can bet on myself and when I know so many people in this industry who are afraid to bet on themselves. And I hope you can walk away with some encouragement to do just that. My name is Samantha Hawkins. I am the Gypsy Dispatcher, one of the amazing traveling dispatchers with motivations, and I am a traveling 911 professional. Training is my jam. Anyone who knows me knows that's my baby. That's my lane. You know the phrase about staying in your lane? To me, I love it and I embrace that phrase because it means staying in the thing that drives me. And training drives me, it fills my cup. I'm also the creator of the Gold Line Truth blog, available on exicon.com, free blog you can subscribe to, and really just insights about the industry, what matters to you. And yes, I'm a sour gummy worms addict. And, as I say on this, I have on the slide here, I'm not saying that I accept bribes, but I'm also not saying if you don't have some sour gummy worms in your hand, I'm just saying, lot can happen. So a lot can happen. So let's get started here, and let me bring this back up here. So let's start off with a question. Here's my question to you. It's going to be your only activity for this session. I want you to take a minute and a half, and think about who is betting on you. Who are your biggest betters in this life? Top 3 names. What top 3 names comes to your mind? Just take a minute and a half to write that down. If you want to drop it in the chat, I'd sure love for you to do that. Drop it in the chat. What 3 names comes to your mind when you think about the people who believes in you the most? Big question. Who believes in you the most? First time I ever asked that question, it was actually earlier this year for an academy. And I'm seeing people drop. Elizabeth, you said my kids, my husband, my church family. I love that. Roxy said my best friends, Misty, Mandy, and JLo, my husband, and me. Wait a minute. Roxy said, and me herself. Interesting. See other names. Sarah said my bestie, my kids, myself. Beth, shout out to my fellow incredible Gypsy dispatcher. She said my mom, my best friend, my boyfriend. All these people dropping stuff. What's up, Gary? Gary said my wife, my family, and yes, I am always betting on you, Gary. Dude, one of your biggest fans and believers. So earlier this year, I had the opportunity. I was speaking at 911 Wonder Woman Academy. It's actually the second one I've ever been a part of as a speaker. And I asked that question. I asked that question to a room of 60 attendees. And it was interesting because every single academy, there's always usually a male. It may be 1 or 2 males, but there's always a male. But this was the first time where it was just women, 60 women. It filled the seats up. And I asked that question. And all the names they put down, I was walking around and I asked, did anybody at all, anybody in this room happen to put themselves down? Did they put their own name down? And only one person in that room did. And I walked up, I said, gotta see it. Sure enough, they did. Roxy saw her, she said myself. And Jessica, I see your comment. You said myself because if I don't advocate for myself, who will? My mama and my children. And that's what this session is about. We all have people in our life who are our biggest believers, fans, heroes, the people who bet on us, and they make us better and they make us believe in ourselves because we know they're always betting on us. And that's gravy. That is amazing. That is the bonus. But I want every single one of you, if I ever ask this question again, I hope right up top on that list, you put your own name. Because here's the thing. There's going to be days when you're going to wake up and you're going to look in that mirror and the only person you may be able to bank on betting on you is you. And I want you to bet on you. Again, we're going to talk more about this, not just for every win, but even for the losses. So point number 1 I want to make here is betting on your passion. Bet on your passion. the why. We talk about it all the time in this industry. The why. What drives us? What makes us continue to show up and show out and do what we do? And everybody's why is different, right? I know some people who are very much promotionally driven, and that is their thing. They bet on themselves to always advance. Their idea of success and advancement is up, up, and up. And that's what they bet on. And that's what they're passionate about. I'm a different type. So every single year, I have to ask myself by the end of that year, hey, Sam, how have you challenged yourself through the year? I look at what I deem as my successes. And I got to a point in my career in 911 where I realized for me, it's not driven by up, up, and up. It's driven by forward, forward, forward. But here's the thing, whatever your why is, do you know it? Are you in tune with it? And do you bet on it? Do you bet on it? If you are the type that you have a goal, you know, hey, I want to eventually manage my own center. I want to be a training coordinator. I want to run the accreditation program at our center. How are you laying the steps out, betting on yourself to make that happen? It starts, though, with knowing your why. February 16th, 2020, it's a little email that I wrote. Let's be clear. I started it off and I said, greetings, Mr. Martinez. I have never called Ricardo Mr. again in my life. And I likely never will. Love that dude. He's my brother. But this was, I never talked with him. This is the first time. I just happened upon it. And I couldn't even retrace my own steps mentally to tell you what I saw, where I saw it, that there was a continuing education scholarship. I'd never attended a Navigator, APCO, NINA. I was about 5 years into my career in 911. And no one had said, hey, you can go to conferences. And I wasn't even thinking about speaking at conferences. I just didn't even know what it was to go. And it was much different management than I had. For those who know where I came from, understand this was a whole different era of management. This wasn't the management, the leadership team that I left when I left that agency. So it was way different. And I just put together this email and sent it to him. And, hey, this is what you said you require. And apparently it went to his team and they made the decision. And in 2020 was when I first made the biggest bet on myself. But that was because that was a time in my life when I started to realize my why. I realized I liked training. I thought at first it was just the fact that maybe I just liked, talking and listening to people because I liked people sitting and observing with me, new hires, potential hires. I wasn't a CTO or anything yet. But I realized that I kind of liked being able to impart knowledge and things. And I realized I got real passionate about it. I got real animated about it. But I also realized that my cup was only so full. And this continuing education scholarship and this opportunity was to be able to go to a conference and for me to get more learning. And I figured, well, if I really want to train, I probably need to, take some classes. I don't really know what these conferences are, but it seems like it's an opportunity to learn and to grow. And I'm going to need to do that if I think I'm ever going to train. So I wrote Mr. Martinez about this. And I ended up winning, being the recipient of the Within the Trenches continuing education scholarship for that year, which, as y'all recall, 2020 was 2020th. Didn't get to go to the conference that year, actually, because, of course, all the conferences were shut down. But every single thing that he promised me and more, Ricardo honored that very next year. Didn't forget about it. I didn't have to remind him, like, hey, it's 2021. He was like, hey, remember that scholarship from the year before? We got to get you going. And I went to APCO 2021. The first big bet I ever made of myself. And that, to me, is what led to the second biggest bet that I ever made. And it was a few months that same year in 2020, started to see all these other resources. It's amazing what happens when you open one door, right? I'm a big believer in opening your own doors. I've had this conversation before when it comes to whose job is it to develop yourself. And I love hearing what agencies are doing to invest in their people and to grow their people. But I want every single person watching, I want you to realize that you owe it to yourself to grow your own self in this industry as well. And sometimes that's going to mean opening up your own doors and creating your own opportunities. There's a difference between my agency doesn't support me and doesn't facilitate something, and my agency holding me back. And there are examples of people being held back, but there are other examples where maybe they're just not facilitating it. Apply to the scholarships. Put yourself out there. I get people all the time who say, Sam, how do you do this? How do you do that? It is not because I just have this whole pool of connections I can pull from. I still get no's along the way too. It's because of two big bets I made in my life in 2020, and I've been betting on myself ever since. In 2020, August 8th, got another little whim to do something, and I saw that there was this blog. It was the first time I actually was introduced to the 911 Wonder Woman blog. And I read a couple of ones, and I'm like, man, this is some good stuff. And way at the bottom said about, hey, if you have something, you can write too. So I sent an email out to this girl named Sarah and wrote her and said, well, I have this idea for a blog of something that's kind of been weighing on my heart, and I just didn't know what to do with it. It's just been something that's sitting on me, and I know a lot of people feel this way about in 2020, wanting to do something about being bigger than the bias, being a person of color in 911. And I think I've got some insight to share on this that might resonate for other people. And I sent that email to her on August 8th, 2020, in classic Sarah style. She wrote me back pretty quickly and said, I'm going to give you a definite answer. The answer is yes. I'll give you more feedback, but at this moment, my kids are climbing all over me. So I will get back to you when I can properly talk to you. And going from betting on myself, applying for a scholarship to get to go to a conference, never been to a conference, to submitting to put my piece out there is what started my path of ownership in 911. Owning your journey in 911 is about betting on your passion, betting on your why. It's also about betting on the small beginnings. Don't despise the small beginnings. Everyone starts somewhere. So now that my why was starting to come together and I realized that I like training, the obvious thing in my head was, well, I want to be a CTO. I want to be a training officer. And it just so happened that we had some opportunities that opened up. And the short story of it is I applied, I didn't get it. Sam got real salty and bitter. Now, I didn't show it. I took my calls and went about my day, but I was bitter. And that was actually number one. That was definitely scenario number one where I first started thinking about rage quitting. I had two situations during my span of working in a single piece app where I definitely wanted to rage quit. And blessings to my mom on both occasions, who looked me in the eye and said, are you leaving because the Lord told you to leave, or are you leaving because you're mad you didn't get this? So when I asked the question, I didn't get the position of CTO. I didn't get the position of training officer back then. Why is it? And the answer was, well, we went for people who honestly had some training experience. When I put the saltiness away and the bitterness, it made sense. And I couldn't really be mad about who they chose. And here's what I realized, though, for myself. Instead of being mad about it, because I went for this position and I didn't get the title, and I didn't get it that first time around, what I realized was this. At the end of the day, Sam, if you really want to train, no one can stop you from training. You want the title, want the percentage, the specialty pay that you get with being a CTO. Admit it. If that's what you want, then fine. But if your passion is training, You can bet on that, and you can start from where you are. So I grew up in a household where my mother every single year, every single Christmas, to this day, gets chicken soup for the soul books for every single one in the family. Like everybody from my dad on down, everyone has chicken soup for the soul books that we would get from mom. And it was, you know how they say there's an app for everything? Well, I'm convinced there is a chicken soup for the soul book. And the funny story is that now, years later in my life, I'm published into. And I actually, in this book here, I wrote a story called A Lesson in Learning When to Stay, where I talked about one of those times when I wanted to rage quit and how my mother looked at me in the eye and said, "Are you leaving because the Lord told you to leave, or are you leaving because you're mad?" So when I asked myself, well, wait a minute, if you just want to train, Sam, you can train. You don't have to wait till you become a CTO. You can look for opportunities to train. And those opportunities came in 2020 when, with a lot of the in-person conferences being canceled, there was a lot of virtual opportunities. Kansas, APCO put on things like their training days, their virtual training days in the spring and the fall. And so one by one, I started to participate and reach out and pitch myself and bet on myself and to build my storyline, my narrative as a trainer. Didn't need the CTO title, didn't need the specialty pay. I bet on myself and I started where I was at. We all have to start somewhere. Don't despise the small beginnings. Don't despise the small beginnings. Bet on your purpose. And that starts with aligning your work and your mission with your larger life purpose. I learned this from someone. I learned it without them actually just saying it straight to me, but I learned it because there was an opportunity that I applied for one time. And the craziest story was that the person looked at me and said, kind of surprised you applied for that. When I look back on that opportunity, I'm surprised too, because it had nothing to do with training. And I didn't get it. And I've reached a point in my life where I realized, man, I'm glad I didn't get it. Because nothing about my passion or my purpose really aligned with that. Everything now in my life, and a lot of the things of what I do, aligns with my life purpose. The importance of knowing your why, knowing your lane, knowing your thing, is because you can confidently bet on yourself when you know what your mission is and when you can align everything. The difference from when I applied to that position many years ago and the surprise that registered on that person's face, like, I'm kind of surprised you applied for this, was because I became a lot more in tune with my passion and my purpose. And since then, I've not applied for a single thing. I've not taken on a single thing that someone cannot look at me and say, you know what? Of course you're doing this. This doesn't surprise me because I align it with my greater purpose. I think back to this whole cycle in my life, starting from my very first job when I was a cashier for Publix. And look, I did that. I was 18. I was 18, going on 19 when I started at Publix. And it was my first job. So I ate all the stuff up that they taught me, the stuff about your customer is always right and everything. But I think about how even from my days till then, I always loved training. At Publix, and it's probably a different story, hopefully it's a different story for labor purposes, but back then, the trainers at Publix stores were the people who had been there a minute. So my sister and I, we worked at the same store, and we got to a point where we were about 4 months in, and they were like, well, we really like your work that y'all do behind the register. We like your customer service skills and everything. So they used us to train. Didn't get paid a dime more. There was no special title. They didn't add anything to our badges. But I realized, man, I love this. I'd volunteer for it. As soon as I would see a new face, oh, we got a new person. What department are they starting in? Oh, they're starting here? I got it. Let me train. Either me or my sister, we got this. So I think about that whole cycle. betting on myself, and the reason why I can bet confidently and you can bet confidently is because when you tap into what your purpose is and what your passion is, everything starts to fall into place. There is nothing wrong with taking time to sometimes assess something. Sometimes you will have to assess yourself. Sometimes you need to assess your path. Sometimes we get out of place. We do something, and it's not a loss to challenge yourself to do something new, and you realize this doesn't really align with my mission. Nothing wrong with stepping backwards, taking a deep breath, and saying, let's go at this again. I want us all to really accept that you don't have to wait to doors get slammed on your face. You can close some doors on your own. You don't have to wait till someone looks at you and says, hey, I don't think it's working out. You can sometimes make that decision and say, you know what? It's not working out. And it doesn't have to be a you thing. It doesn't have to be a me thing. Sometimes it's a situational thing. Some candles are just always going to burn brighter in other rooms. Doesn't say anything about the room itself being wrong. It's just wrong for the candle. But I want to go ahead and take a quick moment before we get back to our principles. I'm going to say something. I've said this before in classes, and every so often I get met with that look at, oh, are you really saying what I think you're saying? Be prepared that sometimes betting on yourself, it actually means betting on yourself. I said that there was a difference between your agencies holding you back and your agencies not facilitating something. Thankfully, we have in this industry so many scholarship opportunities. I see it all the time. If you come across a scholarship opportunity and either it's something that is on your track, look into it. If it's not something you're looking into, share it, because I promise you there's someone in the industry that could benefit from it. But here's what I'm going to say. Sometimes betting on yourself is going to cost. Not just time, not just effort, not just energy, not just sweat equity. Sometimes it does cost money. I am a big Chinese food fan. Okay, it's a fact in my household. My family knows I'm going to eat Chinese food typically once a week, at least twice a month. I'm going to eat Chinese food. So let's just be real. We all have those things that we know we invest in, we buy, whatever it is, your hobby or whatever. If you can put money aside, or if you can go ahead and plan and budget in your head, you know what, I'm going to purchase this when this comes out. Please be that passionate about putting sometimes money where your mouth is when it comes to your training. Because what do you think is even more worth it? Your professional development. There are going to be certifications that you may have the opportunity to go for. And it might cost some money. And maybe you don't have the certainty of your agency paying for it. I wish every agency would facilitate it and make it happen. But sometimes we're just dealing with smaller agencies. If you have the opportunity to go for a scholarship, go for it. You're worth it. If you might have the opportunity to take that money you got for Christmas and already plan in your head, you know what? I want to go for EMP. I'm going to go ahead. I've been studying. It's time for me to register for it. Please do it. You're worth it. You're worth it. You're worth it. In this industry, without saying it, that is the attitude and the mindset that we literally deliver to our callers. We deliver the mindset and the attitude and the viewpoint of you're worth it. You called 911, you took the time to call, whatever it is, the emergency you have, you're worth it, and it's worth it. And I'm going to spend this time and this energy to listen to you. If you have not heard this, those of us in this industry doing this job day in, day out, you are worth it. You are worth it also to be heard, to be seen. And sometimes maybe the only person seeing what you have to offer in this industry is you. But bet on you. Bet on you even. on the no's and the not nows. Because rejections and delays, they're just part of the journey. I said earlier about owning 911, owning your journey. You realize talking about owning the journey, yes, it's not just the waves. It's not just the highs, it's the lows too. It's the applying for CTO the first time and not getting it. But not getting so salty or so bitter that you don't apply again that next year, as I did in my case, and got it. Because in between the time, I told you that I said, you know what? If you really want to train, Sam, then you'll just train. So when I a year later, came back around and applied again to be a training officer back at my old agency, I actually brought them this whole, I printed up these Word documents and I listed all the stuff over the course of the year. Every blog I had written, every session I delivered in person, virtually. And I looked them in the eye and I said, you know, a year ago, I didn't have that. When you asked me what my training experience was, I didn't have that. This is what my training experience is. And I said, you know, it was really a good opportunity to do this. Not for you guys, but it was a good opportunity to spend this year doing it because I got to prove to myself I really do love training. And I said, so this is what I have to show for it. And I'd really love to be a CTO. But if I'm not, I'm going to continue doing this. And I got it the second time around. But realize your attitude and what you do in between the no's and not nows are important. It can't be you take a bet, it didn't immediately pay off. So now you're hurt and you're bitter until that win finally comes around. Realize if that's how you live, it's a hard way to live. Because I've seen some no's drag out, seen some not nows drag out. I've seen some not nows turn into no's. That too is part of the journey. That too is part of it. These four individuals, Walt Disney, Oprah Winfrey, Steve Jobs, Mark Cuban. If I asked you, do you know what they have in common? Well, they're all successes, they're all legends, they're all epic individuals that obviously are easily recognizable. But that's not all they have in common. It's not all they have in common. Every single one of these individuals, at some point in their professional lives, were fired. I've actually been looking into this. Sometimes I find myself going down some rabbit holes, and recently I was looking into it because I was on a Wikipedia page, and I was looking up these tech guys, and I noticed like in the Wikipedia page it said, "Oh, they were fired from here." And then I went and I looked someone else out, and I was looking at everything, and it was like this billionaire, and I noticed it in their professional thing. It was like, yeah, and he was fired from here, and I'm like, that's funny, because nobody is sitting here looking at a Mark Cuban billionaire going like, you were fired, yeah, oh yeah, sir, oh yeah, guess what? I got dirt on you, Mark. I heard that you used to work. I think it was like a 7-Eleven or 7-Eleven type store. No, confused. Actually, he was a salesperson. He worked in a sales store, and what happened was he forgot to open up on time and got fired. No one is dragging Mark Cuban through the dirt for that, saying, nobody cares, right? Because everyone sees the many, many bets that he's made on himself down the line. They see how it's paid off. Every single one of these individuals had some kind of rejection, demotion. They were terminated. But that's not what they're known for. That's not what they're remembered for. And also, they proved they obviously didn't let that stop them from betting on themselves. Oprah Winfrey, this is a notable thing. A lot of people know this story. She was fired from the original, like the Baltimore news company that she was working with. She was an anchor, a news anchor for this Baltimore channel, and they fired her because they didn't think she was a good fit to be an anchor. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. He brought in a brand new CEO, and apparently the personalities between Steve and his brand new CTO that he hired at the company It was such a clash. They were so divided that Apple pushed him out of his own company. He was fired. And then later on came back on to Apple. And Walt Disney is another notable one. He used to write for the Kansas City Star newspaper way back when, was fired because they said, quote, they didn't think that he had enough imagination. So he was fired from the newspaper. Every single one of these individuals aren't remembered because they got rejected, because they got fired, because they were let go, because someone else didn't see the potential they had. And they bet big on themselves. And they won. But I imagine that there was a lot of betting and losing, and betting and not getting the outcome that they wanted until they finally did. I also want to be clear about this. There is a time to cut your losses. I mentioned earlier about assessing yourself. I'm not saying stick to a path that is just not working. I'm a big believer in a lot of self-assessment. I assess myself every single year to make sure the path I'm on is still the path I'm supposed to be on. And you don't just know that yourself. Sometimes you've got to ask questions. And I'm going to hit on another big principle. We'll get there. Because sometimes you just can't trust yourself alone to know if you're on the right path. That's why it's good to have people in your life. But all these people, again, they aren't remembered because they were fired. They're remembered for the lives they've led, the epicness of their journeys, and all that they've created, and all that they've given this world and contributed or continue to contribute for those who are still with us. You bet on themselves. Sometimes we forget that all the punctuation that comes with the journey is just as important. The dashes in between, the ellipses, the commas. Sometimes they just mean, wait, there's more, but sometimes there are periods. There's breaks, there's gaps. Again, it's not just about, I bet on myself and I won and I'm good. I said that I still bet on myself. I've come to a point where I'm blessed to be in an organization where I have a lot more flexibility, of course, than I did when I was working full-time in a single center, which means I'm able to go out and pitch myself speaking, travel to teach, go to conferences, go to states I've not been to. So I'm always putting out there, always doing call for speakers. And sometimes I get invited to teach somewhere. And I had an opportunity. I was invited to teach, and I said, oh, this is great. And they said, well, put together an invoice. And I put together my invoice and everything. And then they followed back up, and they said, we just don't know if we can make this work. And I said, well, I understand, and I appreciate the opportunity. So I understand that this is not going to make it work. It's logistically doesn't work for you. Logistically doesn't work for me. And they said, well, wait a minute. You're saying you're not going to speak? I said, well, no, because I understand. And I said, I'm flexible, I'm negotiable, but it did have to work out for me logistically as well. There's going to be times like that. There's still times in my life where it just turns into a no. Now, old Sam would have got really hurt and thought, well, man, maybe I missed out on something. But Sam, as of the last few years, I've gotten to a point where I don't believe there's any just lost opportunity or just missed opportunity. I've come to appreciate that sometimes things don't pay off or they don't turn out like how you want it to. Interesting enough, in the last couple of months, I had 4 opportunities. I was going to go out and teach at conferences, actually all in different states that I had never taught at before. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen because something way more pressing and important happened and required me to be present in Asheville to help out with the incredible people of Buncombe County 911, who's become truly my work family over the last year that I've been contracting with them. A contract that I will miss being a part of, but Gypsy Dispatcher has to move on. So the last 4 in-person, I had these opportunities to speak, and I had to cancel every single one, the same thing. Can't go. I'm going to be an ass for this. Can't go. I'm going to be an asshole. It's not just about waiting to things pay off to say, well, now I understand. Sometimes you've got to accept it just wasn't meant to be. You can have plans. I had planned in my head that whole time, man, this is the most conferences I will have ever spoken to in such a short period of time. Now, interesting enough, I probably already have about 5 in-person conferences now planned, just like that I've been invited to over the first 5 months, over the first 4 months of the next year. But it's not just about when things go right. It's understanding and appreciating that betting on yourself, even when things don't go exactly as planned, it doesn't take away from your worth. Me being a training professional, I'm not less of a training professional if I can't go speak at a conference that I wanted to go to. And if I think I am, well, there's a bigger problem there. And that problem there would be my mindset. It's not just the wins. It's not just the highs. Principle number 5. I told you I was going to get to this. Your tribe. Betting on your tribe. I don't care if your tribe is 10 people, 5 people, 2 people. I have a very tight-knit tribe. I do. I just do. And my best friend, Juliet Brown, she has a signature class that she teaches. It says, not everyone in your circle is in your corner, which is so true. There are going to be people that exist in your orbit, in your circle, and they are worthy and they're valued and they're great people to have in your network. They could be subject matter experts in their field. They could be people that you can call on when you have a question. They could be individuals that you recognize as being an amazing leader. Doesn't mean they're part of your tribe. Doesn't mean they're a part of your corner. And I'm blessed and I'm thankful because I've got a huge tribe. I've got the folks that's in my orbit and in my circle, and then I have those individuals who I can go on, I can turn to, and I can say, hey, I've been doing some self-assessing, but I need you to keep it real for me. Keep it real with me. And I can call on them because they're not afraid to say, oh, you're wrong about this. They're not afraid to say, do you really think you should be taking that on right now? Now, didn't you just agree to do this for this individual, and now you're going to agree to do this? Do you not think that you might be taking on too much on your plate and you're not going to be able to give everyone the attention they deserve or all the projects the attention? They're going to call me out. I have a best friend. I know I can. And she's going to be like, okay, I just want to make sure. So you think this is a good idea because I know that you were kind of, you were pressed for time doing this. So you think if you add these 20 other things, it might not be an issue? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't take that on. Bet on your tribe. Because when you have those people in your life that are supportive, that understand your mission, they're betting on you. They are just as invested in seeing you grow as you are in seeing yourself grow. And again, I have a wide network of people. I have a wide circle. That's the thing about, even being a traveling dispatcher. My Gold Line family grows. It's always growing. Then I have my tribe. Then I have my people. In the comments, I see Elizabeth, you said the ones that aren't afraid to call you on your stuff. Yes. Those are the ones. Those are the people in your corner. The ones that when you're self-assessing, when you're assessing the value of that path that you're down, realizing like, I can go to that person and say, hey, I'm about to make a big bet here. What do you think? What do you think? Now, I also understand. There's a quote that I've come across so many times. Every single time I see it, I think I reshared it on LinkedIn. And I love this quote. And it says, not everyone has to understand your calling. It wasn't a conference call. And that's true. That's true to a degree. But I do believe that accountability is also very important. Betting on yourself and believing in yourself is that sometimes you're the only one that hears that calling in your life. And you make a big bet. And sometimes your friends may not initially see it. Or they may say, you know what, I don't know if this is necessary, what it is that you should be doing, but I do see how it aligns with you and your mission. So let me take some time to see how this plays out. But yes, I agree that what you're doing here aligns with your mission and your passion. Bet on your tribe. Bet on your future. Professional development, so many flavors to that. And it's all about learning and growing and challenging yourself and advancing yourself. And I talked about in the beginning about, like, even when it comes to your why. Some people, their development happens promotionally. For them, they gauge it of up, up, and up. And if that's how you gauge it, then fine. And for individuals like me, I gauge it as forward, forward, forward. Every single year, I have to look back on and see, did I do something this year that I did not do last year? And that's how I gauge it. And so I will look at the end of this year. I've already been looking and putting it down on paper for the end of 2024. And I've been looking at the things that, if you had asked me if I ever saw myself doing in January of 2023, and flash forward to the end of 2024, and I've done it maybe 4 or 5 times, and I'm like, wow. That to me is how growth looks for me. It's seeing the opportunities that might have came my way years ago, and I was like, oh no, never. Came my way in 2024, and I said, let's do it. Bet. Let's go. Betting on your future, betting on continuing the process of learning and growing. I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. It's a lot of people watching, a lot of people will watch later, so you're going to hold me accountable. I'm going to have to get my ENP. That's my plan. That's a big bet I'm making on my future, as in near future. I'm going for this. Because that is me developing myself. And I realize that that's getting my EMP. It's going to open up other doors. And how I said I gauge myself, for me, how growth looks is on, forward, forward, forward. That's my forward. That's me betting on my future. That's me betting on opportunities I've already had presented my way that I know connects with getting EMP. As in, hey, you're ready to do this? Awesome. You've got to do this, though. You got to get EMP. So that's my big bet. That's going to be me. That's what I'm going to have to get after. I want you to start thinking for yourself. What do you need to bet on? And I already told you, I know, don't eyes don't glaze over on me now, because that bet might be costly, but you're worth it, right? I want you to start betting on your future. Update that resume. You say, well, Sam, I'm not going anywhere. Update it anyway. Go ahead and get it updated. Get it. Make sure everything is up to date of all your make sure you're putting down what you're doing. When you have a new opportunity, when you've put yourself out there, if you can frame it in such a way it can go on your resume, it needs to go on your resume. Get your recommendation letters together. You know, I had an opportunity that recently I applied for, and they asked for recommendation letters. And I had to get letters, since it was specifically, this opportunity has to do with training and teaching. I needed to get letters. I need to get letters from people who could attest to my ability as a trainer. Now, let's be real. Like, you know, I'll just say it. You don't have to admit it in the chat if you don't want to get in trouble. But a lot of us, if you're watching, you're already employed. I'm pretty sure you're safe. When we do these recommendation letters, who do we ask? Our best friend. Hey, so there's a job that's going to call, and I need you to, say what you got to say. Right? We call our friends. I want you to be intentional about your recommendation letters. Please be intentional about it. When I had this opportunity and I applied, I was intentional. I actually didn't ask my best friend. I was intentional about asking. I did ask a really good friend of mine, and then I asked an individual who I had taught post classes with, who actually came through the academy with me and has seen me teach, classes to officers. So I knew they could attest. And I got them. And I also got a recommendation letter from an individual who could attest to my teaching ability from the perspective of being a student. And I thought that was a really interesting ask for this job. And I thought to myself since then, I've told friends of mine, get recommendation letters like that too. Have you ever thought of maybe, hey, as you bet on you and as you put yourself together and concern yourself about your development professionally, for those of you who might end up seeking training opportunities or a job as a training coordinator, have you ever thought about recommendation letters from people who's been students of yours? You realize you're training as a student. Who best to attest to what you can do as a trainer? If you are someone who regularly puts together in-service classes at your agency or in-house classes, those people, they may be your coworkers, but if they're sitting in a class and you're teaching a concept in that way and from that viewpoint, they're a student of yours. Have you ever thought about saying, hey, would you write a letter? Don't date it. I'm not going anywhere. You can get them out of your business and be like, I'm not leaving the company, but I want to get together these letters because I might down the line, this class I put together that you said was really great. This might be something that I want to actually make a thing of. Maybe I want to teach it elsewhere. So update your resume. Put together your recommendation letters because we don't often think about that. As trainers, you're teachers. Those are your students. So have them put that together. Believe in yourself and bet on yourself enough to take that class. Go get that certification. Go attend that conference. I've talked about. I went to a conference before. I was traveling with a coworker of mine from my old agency, and we kind of had this whole. It was sort of like the chicken and the egg conversation, but it went like this: whose job is it to invest in you? And from her viewpoint, her thing was it should be the job of the agency you're with to do that investment, to tell you about those opportunities, to put out there's conferences and everything. But I had a different viewpoint because also we had come from different eras of management. So the management that she came under was the new management that we had at our old agency who was all about that. And I loved it. I loved it for our new people. But I came from a different era where that wasn't taught to me. So my viewpoint was, I think it's great for your agency to believe in you, and in every agency you should be. And I will continue to teach classes. We just had a really great leadership webinar taught with my friend Drew Clark, and we talked about this. So I'm a big believer as your leadership and as trainers, invest in your people and tell them about these opportunities and bet on them and believe in them and do that. But individually, we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to ourselves to know the avenues that we can take, to know the things that we can do, because as we've realized, 911 is not a dead end. And it's not going anywhere either. And it's not a dead end career. It's not a dead end career. And it doesn't have to just be a stepping stone. There's so much greatness in this industry. And for all the talks and the conversations and the discussions about those who leave, there's a lot of those who stay. And if you're going to stay, you owe it to yourself to bet on yourself and to find whatever path it is for you, and find whatever path of training. Reach out to people and ask that question, because there's probably classes related to whatever it is, whatever path in 911 you want to truly pursue. Get those certifications, because certifications open doors. I know we all see the people with the long chain of alphabet soup. I'll probably will never get there. And even if I do, I hope that, I might say, I may get this and get that. I already said I'm getting EMP. But it's not just about the alphabet. And they'll tell you, it's not just about the whole book after their name. Every single one of those certifications, every single one of those designations they've earned was a way they challenged themselves. They believed in themselves. They bet on themselves. And now they've got the letters to show for it. So apart from the alphabet soup part, that's kind of funny, it is a sign of them betting on themselves big. and winning big. Because those designations, those certifications, they do open doors and they do allow for new connections to be made and new chances to network with people. So this is your to-do list. To believe in yourself, to bet on yourself, get in tune with your why. If at this point, I don't care if you are 10 years in, if you say, well, Sam, I am 12 years in, it's never too late to connect with your why. I've seen people present for the very first time in their lives, and they're over a decade into this industry. Great, because they've got something to say. You've got something to say, and you still have something to give. So there's no, oh, I'm at this year, so at this point, I'm not worth betting on myself. Yes, you are. You could be, I've been doing it for 15 years and I've never gone to the conference. So I guess 2025 is going to be the time for you. Put in for a scholarship. Ask someone, reach out to someone. Hey, how can I make this happen? Maybe it costs a little bit. But like I said, you're worth it. You are the best investment that you will ever make. That is me. I love this hoodie. So the other thing about me is I mentioned the sour gummy worms. That's a fact. I am a sour gummy worms addict. Always will be. I relapse every single month. And I am also a big hoodie wearer. I would probably wear hoodies everywhere if I didn't think that it would somehow get back to my mother. But I wear hoodies a lot. And that's my favorite hoodie. Which way back when I first started the Gold Line Troops blog, actually in July 2023, that year in September, some of my fellow traveling dispatchers just went and surprised me with a hoodie with that. So that is the QR code to subscribe. If you don't already, check it out. Check it out, the blog. And again, it's the content that hopefully matters to y'all. And let me know about anything else I can do because this here, all of this, always betting on you, betting on yourself, and how I've bet on myself. I've bet on myself being a training professional. But like I said, even about Dare to Be Great, really all the trainers in the world, what fills our cup and what makes us great is because we have people who are always going to show up and say, I want to learn, I want to develop myself, I want to be better, even at every age, at every stage in 911. So thank you all for this. Dare to Be Great 6, third year in a row. Can't even believe it. And it's going out with a bang. Y'all have been amazing. And I've missed out on some a lot of great sessions working. And I can just imagine, I know the folks out at Bunkum is like, all right, time to get back out and get to work, Sam. But I want to thank y'all. Ricardo, man, thank you so much, brother. Thank you again for the opportunity to do this. And love every single one of y'all.
Oh, snap. Very well done as always, my friend. Holy moly, you brought me back, just showing a lot of that stuff on there while sharing your story, and I remember every single one of those moments, especially when we talked about honoring the scholarship, and you were so surprised. It's like, dude, like I'm not
Like,
gonna
what?
just let it go. Like it's yours. Like it's not going to anybody else. It's yours.
I was.
And
So, yeah.
San Antonio was awesome.
It so was. And, the thing was, I remember the last day, like every single day, I was just awestruck, right? Because I'm just meeting all the people. So I was like, all the celebrities in 911. The last day, it was a couple of sessions, and one of them, it was so many people. And that was when I'm looking up there, and I'm one of those folks. I'm really big about like, I imitate what I love. I see something. And if I look and I go, I want to do what you're doing, it's not like because I think I can do it better. It's because I love what you're doing and I want someone to feel the way I feel. So I was sitting and I couldn't even tell you what speaker it was. I was just watching because it was really the culmination of the whole event. And I'm just looking at them and I'm like, I've got to do this. I want to do this. And I went back to my boss and I was like, yeah, I'm going to apply for Nina. And apply for APCO next year, and then rest is history. But that, I mean, from that conference, and everything, like those were big bets, man. And just I reflect on it. I love, man. I tell you what, I'm just gonna miss every time when you're doing the session. You've got people in the chat and stuff. And then even the times when they go quiet and you imagine that they're going quiet because they're thinking and they're taking notes, and then this starts up again. But my first session, again, June 7th, 2021, when I did for the pre-con that day, man, for Dare to Be Great 3, and seeing the comments going wild, they're like, dude, you're doing great. This is your first time for like, nah. And it just hyped me up. So that's why I can't wait to, Wednesday I have is my day off. So I can't wait to really be watching the stuff and doing that with what everyone else does and getting the hype folks up and have a really great time. And even tomorrow I'll be
Oh,
watching network. So
yeah, it is gonna be excellent and truly a Dare to Be Great moment, story, always bet on you. Man, perfect. Thank you
thank
so, so very much once again. Just in the comments, everyone thanking you. Great job, great session, great topic, all of it. It was an excellent way to finish off day one, which is crazy to think that we are already at the end of day one. I
you.
went to sleep late last night. I was trying to go to sleep early and I was trying to wind down and I just dig me some Family Guy sometimes. So I was watching a few episodes. I thought, wait, I need to go to bed. And so I crashed out, but then I woke up at like 5:30, quarter to 6, and I just jumped right back in. So here we are. It'll probably be the same thing tonight, but it's gonna keep going. And again, thank you everyone for joining us all day today. We are back tomorrow, bright and early, 8 a.m. for opening sessions. But if you want to check out after the greatness, I'm gonna go live with Jennifer Poole of In Digital, and we're gonna be live all over social media, and we're gonna talk about an hour or so, and we'll see you there. Thank you all very much once again.
Bye.